Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dynamis pod. This is Robert. Today I'm joined by Mr. Brandon Steckler of SWAT. Brandon, if you would, take it away.
Hey, Rob. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. Always enjoy speaking
Absolutely.
with my friend. Just a little bit about me. I've been a technician now about 30 years. Not every one of those years was productive years. We've all fallen into those little holes we trouble digging out of, but eventually we figured it out, right? I kind of made my way through the industry by talking too much. I found a real interest in diagnostics. I just like the science behind figuring out how things work,
Sure.
tinkering. And I found that my ability to explain it to other people at a level that makes sense to them, I guess is kind of my niche. I'm not smarter than anybody else. I just have a way about how I explain things that tends to stick to people's ribs a little bit better, if that makes sense.
Certainly. Yeah, it definitely does. So I looked up a little bit about you just to kind of get myself a little more familiarized with Brandon Steckler. It looks like you had started out kind of in the industry, kind of like I did, really, really young, working on things that, made noise and threw smoke out of them and, kind of you ride them and, that kind of stuff like dirt bikes and bicycles and whatnot. So small engine repair. I think that it's overlooked in our industry how much it's good for the young person to get their hands dirty, to get into that kind of stuff. And in the modern era, when things are kind of moving away from that and everything's becoming computerized, maybe speak a little bit to kind of how that was able to bring you up through the industry itself.
It's funny you mention that. It's believe it or not, I've never had an interest in cars ever.
I
I
understand.
I wanted to ride my dirt bike and I wanted to fix my
Sure.
motorcycle, and I can get out of school for half a day and do that. Sign me up, right? So
Exactly.
I feel bad for my teacher, my VOTEC teacher, Mr. Mel Johnson. Man, what a sweetheart he was. He just tolerated us kids. We were never bad kids, but a handful of us, clearly we were there to just get out of class.
Sure.
And he encouraged us to try, but if we didn't, he didn't push us. Do what you got to do. But I love that small engine repair.
Hmm.
Technically is recreational and power equipment technology because I could have a lawnmower apart and back together in less than an hour. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
you could take something apart and keep a young kid's focus. Like if I had to put an engine together and it would take 4 days or 2 weeks, look, a squirrel, but,
Yeah.
uh, but being able to take something all the way apart down to its guts and put it back together and you start it up and it runs again. Like that's rewarding for a young person, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
I,
I get to see that too a little bit because it seems like I've had multiple different level of student. So you'll get the level of student that comes in, like maybe their parents are like, you have to do something. And this seems to be the only thing that you're interested in. And maybe they're enthusiasts, but maybe they don't really want to do it as a job. And you get it's a really interesting thing to watch is kind of take yourself out of it, watch how things go and see how it unfolds. Because some of those kids that come through, they don't end up staying in the industry very long. And
no,
that's something that brings me to the next question. Is as somebody that has been in the industry going on 3 decades, like what is it that keeps your interest in the industry?
I can say I still hear it. Many very sharp technicians, peers of mine, that have made their way into a shop, and I guess they become complacent, where the shop owner not only won't pay for training, but he won't even allow them the time off to go to training. Like you want to go train, you do it on your time and your dime. And
Certainly.
you know how it is. You work all day and to provide for your family and then to go spend your hard-earned money on class. Okay, but then you're not allowed to train during work hours. So you got to spend your family time training. It's really, really hard to do. So I could see people losing interest. But to young kids, there's some dear friends of mine that own shops and have taken a totally different approach to mentoring, if you will, children, young people, excuse me. In fact, paying for their tools, all the tools. And maybe the deal is the tools belong to the shop forever
Hmm.
and you can just use them. But some of will buy the tools and let the young person earn their way to keeping that toolbox as their own.
Certainly.
So there's things we can do to make that retaining retaining young talent,
Yeah.
I think, a lot better if we try a little bit harder.
Yeah. I think sometimes we misfocus. I've worked with some managers before in the past that it was almost like they had lost complete focus of what we were there for. You know, you were there to service the customer, which in turn gains the shop some type of income, and then to help out, you know, those people with it's supposed to trickle down throughout the families. And a lot of times, like you're saying, like you just walk in and you're like, why is this person screaming or why is this person yelling at this person? What's going on? Like, I think the soft skills side of it is the thing that's probably most overlooked. The psychology side of it's most overlooked because we have an issue in the industry and no one really wants to put their finger on it. It doesn't seem. And if they are, it's far and few between, or it's just not being trumpeted loud enough in the industry because we have an issue where a lot of people are getting ready to retire. They're always getting ready to retire and they're getting out of the industry. So what's some things that we can do maybe to more romanticism put into it that's going to keep people there? That's the other part of it.
I'll tell you, I think you nailed it when you mentioned soft skills.
Yeah.
You and I grew up in an era in this industry where being a mechanic was a tough job, right? It was a
Yeah.
mean job, and it was grr. You know what I'm talking about? You're a tough
Yep.
guy if you're a mechanic. And good Lord, I think they should have at least when we were in school should have taught a class on having thick skin because man, talk about pardon the expression ball breaking. Good Lord, some of the stuff I endured, you could probably get somebody arrested nowadays if you press the issue. But the thing is, I recently had an opportunity, a tremendous opportunity to work. I would describe it as a leadership management position. And I loved my guys. And there was a girl in there too. I loved her too. These was just a fantastic team, like a family, but of
Hmm.
all different mixes. Angry
Yep.
guys and soft spoken guys and a very autistic fella. You went pat him on the back, he'd shoot through the roof and back up
Right.
from you. You know what I mean? And you know,
Yeah.
I'm a huggy, lovey type person. I'll give a stranger a hug. Not
Sure.
everybody's like that. So
Yeah.
you got to watch that stuff. But catering to people, developing these soft skills, seeing through how people communicate. Like I can't talk to this person the same way I'm going to talk to that person. Recognizing that I think is huge, and making everybody feel like they belong there. I
Yes.
think is everybody's responsibility,
Yep. And
and
making
I
them
think
feel like
that
they
helps.
belong there and also making them feel like, hey, there's things here that you can produce that other people that's here can't. So I think that has a lot to do with it also. Because like I come up through the same period of time, like you said, that I was the person that they came to be able to go up front and tell the customer if they didn't understand what was going on with the vehicle, if the manager couldn't explain it well enough for them to understand well enough to take their money out to pay for it, right? And I think that helped me a lot in where I'm at now because, like
Sure.
you, I get these surveys back, and the surveys say, hey, they were able to tell me this in the language that I understood it. And I think that's probably the most beneficial thing to me. You know, I do it so that they can go out in the industry and stay in there a long time and actually do these things. But I'm not one of those people that say, like, hey, every person that leaves here is going to have to go do a dealership job forever or go do a line technician job forever. There are multiple areas in this industry where you can go and make your self heard, yourself seen, and also yourself, you know, you can be productive in it.
I agree with you 100%. And I want to throw a couple big words out there, so to speak. I think having emotional intelligence, I think, is huge in retaining people. You know, we worry about not keeping people where they leave shortly after they start. I think a lot
Certainly.
of it, like you mentioned, had to do with understanding how people operate. But you brought up a point, if you don't mind me touching on, Robert. You had mentioned about the different areas in our industry, opportunities, if you will, for young people to grow. I being a master technician years ago to me meant, and to most people, you probably agree, you can fix anything on a car. However, I think being a master technician now can have 8 or 9 different paths, most almost like the ASE training areas. You can be a
Certainly.
master technician of engine repair, and you can be a master technician of diagnostics. My specialty happens to be diagnostics, but if you stick me in the work bay and have me replace an engine on some of these newer model, especially high end European vehicles, I mean, I'd be
Hmm.
sweating a little bit. You know, that's not an easy task, and that's not my area of expertise. So somebody else is far more suited to do that job, not only accurately and properly, but
Sure.
efficiently as well. So you can be a master technician in several areas.
Yeah, I think that people will lose sight of vehicles are not built like they once were, like in the 70s, we'll say. because I think the EPA started coming in around the '60s, late '60s was like PCV and all the way up through the system. So they've become a lot more complex. And I agree with your point too. It's not like you're going to be master in all of these different areas, like you can fix every single thing that rolls through the door. And you're right. I mean, even now, I have students that leave school and they're always asking, like, how long will it take me to be a master? And I'm like, the rest of your life. Because honestly, that's literally what it is now. It's not, I always say that don't feel like when you think you've arrived, you've not arrived yet. Like, always think that like arriving is the thing you're aiming at, but just know that like you're always going to be just that little bit outside of actually
Mhm.
arriving and being a master in these things because they're so complex now.
Yeah, and we should seek comfort in the fact that we are going to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
That you're never gonna get to the I shouldn't say never. You are hard pressed to get to the point where this is easy. I'm just cruising. I run a diagnostic support business for a living, and I'm challenged. Every day I'm
Yes.
challenged. I see things that, I haven't seen before or haven't worked on. I've Some of the
Yeah.
cars I've never even sat in. So, believe me when I tell you, I'm hardly ever 100% comfortable. I'm always on the
Exactly.
edge of my learning, my capabilities. I'm always pushing to.
Sure. Yeah, certainly. So the one thing with that is like people will seem like everyone's always looking for the easy out, the silver bullet, if you will, those types of things. Like I think that I always tell students like the best thing that I can teach you today is curiosity and wondering how something works. And not just something about automotive, but like in the entire universe. Like how do all these things work? How do they work together? A little bit of physics, a little bit of psychology, a little bit of these things, because they automatically imprint whatever it is that you're giving them. So I
Mhm.
think that so that they have some emotional intelligence, that they have some actual skills when they got into the world, not only just to get the job, but to do the job, but to actually be able to talk to someone and make eye contact and shake their hand and say, "Hey, I really want to be here. This is the job that I want." You know, not that you're going to be there forever because you may not be. The time where it used to be a person who retired from a place that they get a gold watch and they go away in 35 years is gone. That's not the modern world that we live in. I think the average right now for someone to have a job is about 4 years at one place. So it's definitely ramped up and accelerated in the fact that the internet is part of that because people can go on the internet and get a job now. It doesn't mean that they have to stay somewhere forever. And I would think at this time that shop owners, shop managers, dealership principals, all these people that are kind of over top of these technician positions, they would have thought by now that, hey, something has to change here because the way that we've been doing it's not really working the way that it should.
For sure.
So one of the other things that I've seen is that you mentioned, and a lot of times it's posted, Jim Morton has been a mentor of yours. So, and a lot of people that's going to watch this are going to know Jim Morton's name. He is the person I learned how to use a primary and secondary ignition scope from. He doesn't know that, but at this point in time, like he is the person I watched do that. And that may have come from you, believe it or not, and saying, hey, if you want to know primary, secondary ignition, this is the person you go look at. Look at a lot of his videos coming up through the industry. But who's the second? Who's another person that's would be affiliated as being the other person that really helped Brandon Steckler get to the place that you're at right now?
So, meaning, Jim?
Yeah, like Jim first, like Jim's usually always mentioned as a mentor of yours, but who's like number two? Who was another person out there that you kind of watched throughout your career?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm very fortunate to have the friends I do, and, I'm not avoiding your question, I'm actually answering
No,
it.
no,
A
yeah,
lot of the learning I do comes from my dear friends in the industry, fellow instructors. You gotta understand, at some point, you get to a level where the ordinary things you see, you've experienced, and when I encounter something that truly eats my lunch, there's a handful of people that I think are capable of answering this for me that I'm aware of. And those are the people I reach to. So really close friends of mine,
mhm,
Tommy Oliva and S&J Auto in Chicago, Keith Perkins, everybody knows Keith of L1, Keith
yep, L1,
DeFazio of Opus, and
hmm,
a handful more. Just so many sharp guys. Bryn Klein, of Short Auto Works in Melbourne, Florida. These are the guys that I'm sure when they see their phone ring and it's mine, they're going, "Oh God, what is it?" You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's typically what it is. So truly, that's who I learn from nowadays. I would love to say that I sit in class all the time and learn from the instructors that most of us look up to, and it's not that I wouldn't, it's that I typically teaching at the same time they are.
Exactly.
So I
Yeah.
rarely have that time. And when I do have the time, I it's like a kid standing at a dessert buffet, like, "What do I want?" You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I tend
Sensory
to
overload.
yeah, I tend to bounce around and make notes of things I'd like to learn more about, if that makes
Sure.
sense.
That does.
So yeah, it's hard. I'm hard pressed to say one person. It's that group of what you would consider elite people that fortunate enough for me, they let me hang out with them and ask questions and things like that.
Yeah.
But school of
That's
hard knocks for sure. It's the mistakes I make. I think the difference between a seasoned diagnostician,
mhm.
even a seasoned technician, versus one that's not quite there yet. We don't look at mistakes. You can ask around. We don't look at mistakes like most people do. When I make a mistake, and it happens from time to time,
Mhm.
an oversight, a misconception, we'll call it a misdiagnosis. It's a really, it doesn't happen often. So when it does, instead of, I call it taking the L.
Yeah.
And people are like, you mean the loss? I'm like, no, the learning situation. I turn any loss, I have to capitalize. You know, if it costs me money, I have to make it worth my while. So I will invest time to turn that loss into a learning situation. And I explain that as well when someone else gets bit. If
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Exactly. It does. So the modern era of all of these groups that get together as far as the training, like weekends or the training 3 day, events during the week. I know that you go and you're able to make it to quite a few of those. What has been some of the things that you've learned from those over the years? What's one thing that maybe sticks out?
Synonymously among all of them is the networking. I think the networking, the relationships you make outside of class at these events, believe me, I think darn close to trumping the actual information shared in the classroom. It really is part of the experience, and it's part of making these relationships where these guys will let you call them after dinner while they're sitting on the couch with their family, and they're going to jump through hoops to help you because
Yeah,
they admire the fact that you are putting in the time. You know what I mean? And you don't you don't make those relationships taking nothing but online courses or watching YouTube. So
exactly.
it's these relationships that really allowed me, believe it or not, Robert, the opportunities I've had,
Hmm.
probably every single one of them came from the fact that I have these in-person relationships where I reach out and give hugs and shake hands and have an interest in people's life behind, outside of the shop. I've
Exactly.
watched their kids grow up and I know their wives, and it's just great to be able to call these people family. They're like that close of friends.
Yeah, I try to mention that a lot while I'm in school because I explain, hey, you're in a technical school, but you're in a college, and I'm like the word college means partnership, and I'm like the whole point of partnership is that you're here to network also. Like, you have to be able to talk to other people while you're here, and you need to get involved with the people that you're meeting right now because when you go out into the world, I 100% agree with you with the networking side of it. Because I wouldn't have got where I am now if I hadn't have been seen on podcasts at one point, guest hosting of all things, and somebody see me from the school that I went to and stayed there 2.5 years of top. So it's exactly it. It has to be an additional and above and beyond just the automotive side of it. I think that it's extremely important that we go out, we do a great job every day, and we try to repair things. But on the other side of it, like you said, there's a human component to all of it.
Absolutely.
So another thing I have that I'd seen, I got a couple notes here that I put. Let's talk about true mastery. So that's something that you've talked about in the past as far as true mastery. What does it take for someone to do and to become a true master in the industry?
So, this is a tremendous tip for especially young people getting started out. First of all, shoot for the stars. It's never crowded up there. You will find that when you get up to that point, when you're trying to push the limits to understand how something works, you've left a lot of people behind. And it just goes to show I see the same 200 people across the country at all the events. But true mastery, I want to understand almost how something tastes. And believe it or not, you know what it comes from? It comes from the basics. It comes from the basics. I can't remember, please don't, I know I'm going to get this quote wrong, but Bruce Lee said something like, he fears not the man who has mastered 10,000 different kicks, but the man who's thrown that same one kick 10,000 times. It's these basics, these basics, these basics. And I think the misconception is this: people get overwhelmed because they get in over their head, and they had it in their mind from the start that I got to get these advanced techniques down pat. Because if I know the advanced stuff, almost like they're attending martial arts just to get the black belt. Just give me the black
Exactly.
belt. You know what I mean? Just because you have the black belt and you're wearing it doesn't mean anything. So if you master these advanced techniques, I don't even call them advanced techniques. They're a way for me to conduct a test simply, and they typically save me time. I don't do advanced techniques because they're cool. It's typically because it saves me time. But these advanced techniques would mean nothing to me if I didn't master the basics. And the best part about these basics is they truly apply to everything we work on. So it doesn't matter the badge on the hood of the car.
That's exactly it. So that brings me to the question about this new venture that you've taken off on, going out and helping people at these shops. So what's one thing that you've noticed when it comes to, is there objections, or is it, hey, they just call Brandon Steckler and he shows up and then he magically fixes things? Because I think that some people probably think that, but that's not the way that things typically go, is it?
No, it's not. And most of what I do, Robert, probably 99% of it is actually sitting at this terminal where I'm at in my home office now.
Yeah.
I fix the cars over the phone.
Yes.
But the thing is, it's typically there's either a lapse in technical know-how, meaning they didn't understand those basics, something as simple as not being able to identify how a wiring diagram is laid
Yes.
out, or having a misconception about basic electricity. You know what I mean? I'll ask somebody something as simple as a light bulb circuit. Is this a pull up or a pull down circuit? And they look
Exactly.
at me like I have three heads.
Yep.
And you can't get any more basic than that. So if you lack understanding in that, how could you possibly have an anticipation on test results when you walk over to the car where it's not laid out in front of you on a nice shiny, piece of paper or screen?
Yeah.
So it really isn't magic at all. It's just having a solid understanding of how things work, and it's a slow process, and
Yes.
it's the simple things that you spend the most time on, and that's how you learn.
Certainly. Yeah.
The
Because
rest is just
you can,
configuration.
yeah, you can see this across the country. I mean, I've worked in a couple different shops now, and a lot of times, it feels like you don't have enough time to really fix the car. You don't have enough time to really put into that car what it's going to take to actually fix it. And then you've always got these other two or three things that's going on at the same time. So that seems like that's a great place for you to be able to be sitting off site and be able to try to bring in this additional information to the place and be able to help out. It's almost like you got yourself a cybernetic Brandon Steckler.
For the most part, I think that's a good way of putting it. What I bring to the table is the solution is what they think they seek. And I guarantee that. But what they're really seeking is to understand how. So the time I spend with this client of mine, someone that's entrusted not only this diagnosis to me, but their own education to me in this instance, I spend the time to make them understand my mindset. And I refer to it as just in time training. So there's a million ways to skin a cat. But what I do is when I approach a problem, and this is for your younger listeners as well, when I approach a
Hmm.
problem, my mind used to go in this direction. I have to fix this car. But now my mind goes in this other direction. I say, what information can I gather really swiftly that will tell me all the things that cannot be wrong with this car? Meaning, what can I eliminate right away? And it works out really, really well. In essence, if you've got 30, well, let's make it a little bit easier to swallow here, 20 things that could cause well, call it a lean condition, right?
Hmm.
I can do one test and I might be able to eliminate 10 of those 20 right off the bat from the driver's seat. And then
Sure.
another slightly more involved test, but a justified test that would eliminate another five. And by the time I'm down to two, That's the time I roll up my sleeves and I perform what we consider testing. And it's usually over like that. And it appears to be magic, like someone told me the answer when no one was looking. But it's not.
Exactly.
It's science. It's trusting the science like a pilot trusts his or her gauges when they're flying through cloud cover at 200 knots.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I couldn't agree more.
you
Couldn't
have to
agree
have
more
that
with
faith.
that. Yeah,
Thank you.
because when I talk about diagnostics, that's the same thing I say inside of class is like it's a process of elimination. So like eliminate the things, like you said, quickly. The faster you can eliminate those things, the faster you can get to the things you really need to actually put hands on. So that's a
Hmm.
great point for those who are listening out there to use and utilize. So to that point, a lot of vehicles now are doing self-diagnostics on themselves on multiple different systems. So is there one tip or something that you could tell students to go to or people that are listening that have a scan tool? Where are some areas in the scan tool that they could go to help them figure out a system? We'll say we'll stick with that like a P171, 174 lean. Go with that. It's like what's one area in the system that they could go look at right away and like be able to see, oh, okay, I can borrow that.
So I think the biggest tip, I'm going to give you several quick tips. First of all, we need information that tells a story. And I know a lot of your students go, well, which parameters do I want to
Yes.
identify and look at? Like, there's so many. My answer to that is it depends on what you're trying to see. And you want only the PIDs that tell the story. So, for instance, I want to look at information that tells me how fast the engine's running so I can identify when I'm looking in the data how the engine was being operated. So, I want to see maybe throttle position and engine RPM that tells me how the car is being driven. And I also need information to tell me about how the car is reacting to those driving situations. So, like we mentioned, fuel trim, a corrective factor, and maybe oxygen sensors to see is the vehicle being fueled properly? If not, how much trim to correct for? But all of this information can be found on there's two sides to a PCM. When we connect our scan tool, we can walk in what I call the front door and say, "How you doing, Mr. Honda?" And we call that the enhanced side of the scan tool. Or I could walk through the back door and speak with the we'll call it the executive, right? The person running the show, the person in the computer that's in charge, the diagnostic executive. That's Mr. OBD2, and
Exactly.
he's the same guy on every car. The enhanced stuff is put there by the car's manufacturer. Why?
Yeah.
To help manufacturer certified technicians fix cars under warranty. Why? Because time is money and they need the information to save time. But that information doesn't have to be there. And that manufacturer can put it there however they desire. Like they can change things and substitute values. And it's just
Sure.
not a fun place to be when you're not really familiar with that car. So my advice is to go in the back door, look at the OBD2, what we'll call generic information, because
Mhm.
that has to be there by law. And guess what? Since it has to be there by law, every single car needs to provide that information. So contrary to popular belief, I don't want the enhanced data that's built by way of the VIN number necessarily. I want to go into that generic OBD2 data because that information is repetitive, meaning you
Yes.
can build the same, what I'll call parameter identifiers. We use the word PID, the same
Mhm.
PID list for every car. And guess what? That's how you get good, just like tying your shoes. You do the same thing over and over again, and it becomes like
Yeah. I've
that's
noticed
how you
that's
get
probably
good.
I've noticed that's exactly to what your point is. I've noticed that when I try to train young technicians with the let's say a Snap-on scan tool, that's one of the things that I see is the worst problem is they don't know where to go look at that point because they're younger, right? But the other thing is like I walk over to the scan tool, I'm like, okay, what have you looked at so far? I don't know. Like they have that deer in the headlight, like scared look on their face, like they're just confused. And I'm like, well, the side that you have up right now, you can go and pick which one of these that you want to see. Because if you're trying to look at everything all at once, our brains don't work that way. We're
Mine
like
sure doesn't.
no, we're four slots, like four slots of info and not very much info either. But it's like four slots of info at any one given time is what we can actually hold and process. So it's like, okay, go find five things on that list that you think that you need to see. And then I direct them to go just pull out a custom list and put this custom list up and watch to see what happens when you put it under load, drive the vehicle, whatever it might be. So yeah, you're exactly right.
And one more tip I want to give, don't ever feel like you have to build one PID list and here's your chance to get the information. I will build a PID list like you've just described. And let's say I drive the car and it indicates as I accelerate, it gets more and more lean. And maybe I'm looking at the air mass meter that says how much the engine's breathing, and that looks okay. So at this point, I'm convinced it's a fuel problem. I will go back and reconfigure my scan tool PID list to show me nothing but fuel parameters and how the
Yeah.
vehicle is being operated. And now I'm focused on the fuel system. So one test, one info grab led me to another test, another info grab. And I'm narrowing down instead of up here, the car's broken to
Yeah.
now it's the fuel system. And I will make my way through that fuel system through the scan tool. And when I get to the point where I say, I think the fuel pump is not performing properly. That's what the data shows me. That is when I have the confidence to put the car up in the air and maybe measure available voltage and ground to the fuel pump and maybe current flow through it. And I don't just pull these tests out of my rear.
Right.
I don't just go, let's do this test. I'm always following this information.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you
that's
have
what
to build
helps
a good
prevent overs.
process.
That's exactly what it is. And that's when you start getting good. It's not, I'm no smarter than anyone else, but I have a process and I stick with it like
Yeah.
it's a rule book.
And it's definitely worked out well because I want to transition to this portion of the questioning at this point. You're an international trainer at this point. You've been to multiple different countries. So this is kind of off the beaten path. What's the most beautiful place that you've got to go visit so far?
Beautiful. I'd say the most beautiful place I've ever been is Florianopolis in Brazil.
Okay.
It is like remember that the movie The Blue Lagoon? Like it's
Yep.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
I have so many favorite places, but my absolute 100% favorite place has been England. I
Okay.
just it may because of the camaraderie I had out there. It's just they're my kind of people.
Sure.
They'll call it the banter between us.
Oh, yeah.
We're all the same sick in the head. And immediately I felt like I was home. The ball breaking I grew up with. That's how it is over there too. So, but it's hard to say. I haven't been to a place I don't like yet. I love people and I love different cultures and everyone's so welcoming. You know what I mean? They're very appreciative of you being there, and I'm appreciative of the opportunities as well.
Yeah. And it didn't come by way of like it just got handed to Brandon Steckler either. I think for those that's out there listening, you have to understand these things that are in my blood as well. Like you stay up 20 hours a day sometimes working on some project, some thing that you're getting ready to do as far as a training. So I'll just speak a little bit to that maybe. Like what is a preparation? What's a preparation look like to go to one of these events or to even put together some training for yourself that you're going to go out there and deliver?
So, first of all, it takes practice. And the first class I wrote, I was so nervous the entire time because as I'm watching time tick by and I'm saying to
Hmm.
myself, I have to present this class in 6 months. And God, I'm on slide number 10
Yeah.
and I don't know what, and I'd say I use the word wing it.
Hmm.
Now let me think of slide number 11. Now let me think of slide number 12. So how I did things in the beginning is not how I do things now.
Right.
Preparation for me stems from an idea. What class topic do I want to write about? Okay, here's a topic, and I will sketch out an outline, just like we learned in grade school.
Hmm.
Roman numeral one,
Yep.
capital A, you know what I mean? Lowercase,
Yeah.
then the number one, and I will do an entire outline for a class in probably an hour or two.
Hmm.
And basically what I do is that outline sits on a Word document. It might be 4, 5, 6, 7 pages long. And as I think of, I just start off with the main four Roman numerals and I just spread them out and stick stuff in between them. And as I'm working my way down this outline, I'm like, I know of a slide I can create for that. And I just add bullet points. So I tell myself when I'm writing a book, you have to keep yourself accountable.
Yeah.
When I'm in the process of writing a book, I promise myself 1,000 words a day.
Yes.
If I've got some peace and quiet and no one's around and I knock out the 1,000, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do another 1,000. Sometimes I
Sure.
do 2,000 and I might eat dinner and then instead of watching TV, I might go knock out another 1,000 because I got a hair up my butt. You know, But what I don't do is I don't say, well, I did 3,000 yesterday, so I can take 2 days off. Yesterday's gone. I need my 1,000. And then when you stay
Yeah,
on task, if I'm writing a class, I'm doing 10 slides today. I make it an attainable goal. I know I'll knock out 15 or 20, but if I decide to
sure.
stop at 10, I planned on 10. And before you know it, in less than a month, you've got a class, a really, really nice class. And it's just the way I do things. I'm very regimented. So that's what preparation takes. But the thing is, like you mentioned, what makes me or what makes any instructor who really cares and who's really trying to make an impact in the industry is the effort you put in. Not everyone's going to put in that effort. And I can
Yes.
tell. I would never mention names, but I've sat in classes where I thought to myself, that man could have done a much better job of explaining that. Or even his own material. It's clear he didn't go back and revisit it before class. He just said, I'm the guy
Sure.
that wrote this class. I don't need to practice. And you can see the puzzled look on his face when I don't remember that slide. You could see it.
But yeah,
So
yeah,
and that's the thing. It's not it does take effort, and as you get more experienced, I've done this hundreds and hundreds of times all over the world. You calm down a little bit. You're always a little
oh yeah,
nervous, and they say if you're not nervous, you don't care. I'm not nervous enough where I'm not going to eat or something like that, or I can't sleep the night
exactly.
before. But you get a little bit of the jitters until you start talking, and then you loosen up and you're okay. But that's preparation takes focus, and that's why I have an office. It was difficult for me when I was also a technician
Definitely.
because you get home and you know if you don't work on it at night, well, now you got to dedicate your weekends to it. So at the time I was married, and my wife at the time, it took a toll because I didn't have balance in my life. I'm a very hyper focused person, so if I decide I'm going to write a class, like to heck with everything else, and
Yeah,
it was a hardship in our marriage. I think it did lead to at least partially towards our demise, our divorce. But being regimented is very important, and I'm not trying to talk anybody out of being an instructor. But
right.
make time for yourself, personal time. Also make time to develop these classes and don't let anything interrupt that. Like this is your time
Yeah.
and you have
So
to stick with it.
it's always difficult for me to look out because I'm of the same mindset. I would like to build my own curriculum. And lucky enough for me, I'm into a curriculum now that I like, I believe in. I can teach it the way that they're asking me to teach it, which is awesome. But I remember I went 2.5 years not teaching things that I felt like were the most important to the student. So that's a
Mhm.
difficult thing to live with and do for 2.5 years. I loved what I did. I just didn't necessarily like doing it the way that I was being asked to do it, if you understand. So in this industry, I think that the time off, being able to take time off and also understanding some type of work life balance is, at least in my perspective, it was almost a not even a thing. So, like all the guys that I grew up around and we worked in the industry, most of us worked through our vacations and just took the payout. And I think that that's detrimental over time. I remember doing that 3 years in a row. I was 50 hours a week, place I was at. I was at like 8 hours of overtime a week. It was perfectly fine. They didn't care to pay me because I wasn't a service manager, but I was like a name, but I was like the service manager. Like anything that come up, hey, can you go take a look at this? Can you help this person out? But I think that the mental side of things, the mental health side of things in this industry, and also the human side of it, try your best as a listener, as someone that's watching this. Don't allow it to destroy your life and take things away from you that you would not rather have them take away. I think it's a cautionary tale. I don't think it's a bad thing. And I don't
No,
think you're trying to talk people out of doing this at
not at
all.
all.
But there's that caveat, that little asterisk next to it that says, hey, just be mindful of kind of how much attention that you're putting towards things. Be able to divide those things up in time. So
Even a lumberjack needs to stop to sharpen his axe.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
truth. You need mental clarity and you need to recuperate and you need to find balance in your life and with your family as well when you have a family. And it's just as important as you wanting to advance in your career as an automotive technician.
yeah. Let me ask you this question about that because you've gained some notoriety over the years of being the end cylinder guy. So, talk to the audience a little bit about the reasons for and also the need why you would want to be good at least diagnosing a modern engine, we'll say, with using in cylinder and an oscilloscope.
Okay, and, I've been told that as well. I've been known as the in-cylinder guy, and I guess what you're referring to is, in-cylinder pressure transducer waveform analysis, and maybe your younger listeners know what that is, and maybe they don't. Basically, you're replacing a compression gauge with a sensor that measures a physical quantity, pressure, and it converts it to an electrical signal, and when we put that on a lab scope, we can visually see what's happening inside the cylinder and inside the intake manifold and exhaust system and such. But to answer your question, one of the very first, probably this is the first 8-hour class I wrote was pressure waveform acquisition and analysis from the inside out, and it gained worldwide notoriety. It sat well with people because I did my best to write it from the perspective of a technician that was speaking technician.
Yes.
So many people that I look up to teach the subject. And I shouldn't say so many, a handful, and they do a really darn good job. But I don't have a problem listening to things that are taught way up here. I like the mental challenge, but recognizing that the majority of people that were to sit through a class that's taught up here, they're going to recognize the value in it, but something tangible, something they can take back and implement with confidence is not what I would expect from a class taught at that level. So I teach the way I understand, and that's how it worked well for me. The reason that subject, first, I'll be honest with you, I got kind of obsessed with it
Mhm.
because it was so fascinating to me. So it was a hobby of mine. Instead of doing crossword puzzles, drinking coffee, and reading a paper in the morning, I'd get waveforms that people were struggling with online, and I would diagnose it and write notes and upload to like a Microsoft Paint program and draw arrows
Yeah.
and say, this, what this means. And I had this little bank of, golden nuggets that I built for myself and just put it together in a class type format. But it allows me, that's one of those advanced techniques we were talking about just earlier. Is it advanced? I don't consider it advanced. It's normal.
Yeah.
People see it advanced because it's not typical. There's a bit of a learning curve to it. It's kind of a niche technique. But the point is I do it not because it's a show off move. I do it because I don't want to take engines apart to diagnose a problem. And I
Yeah. I
want
think,
sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Certainly, if I got to the point where I'm taking that front cover off or I've got to pull an engine out to get to the low end, I want some supportive evidence that say, this right here tells you you must go inside.
Exactly. I think
That's
that's a
what it does
great
for
point
me.
because when you're looking at an engine like that, some of these things are not easy to get to. Like, sometimes crank sensors break. Like, you're trying to take crank sensor out of a car, it might break, and that becomes a bigger issue to even deal with. So, the laziness side of it, I feel like, I mean, we wouldn't have the remote control if we didn't have lazy people, right? There is a there is a good component to being lazy in certain ways because it is what these things come out of, these inventions of necessity. One of the guys that I remember going to a lot of NAPA training with was Dwayne Throckmorton. And I'm not even sure if Dwayne's still alive, to be honest. I tried to reach out to him on Facebook and haven't heard back, but he used to teach Fat Man Diagnostics. And to this day, I still teach the same thing. I'm like,
Love that.
why would I go and hook up all these different things to a vehicle without even finding out? Like, if you say it's a typical drag in, no start off the tow truck, why would I go and get the oscilloscope, hook everything to it without ever hooking a scan tool to it first and seeing if I have crank reference? A lot of vehicles give you crank reference, even if it doesn't start. So it's like that was the mindset, and that kind of really set me off on this other path of like, okay, this is kind of what I want to do. I always loved gadgets. So I always wanted to have the newest and best gadgets that are out there. Speak a little of that, maybe. The gadgets. Are you a gadget guru? Do you like that kind of stuff?
So you know what? I used to think I was. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated by technology, but here's the thing. If a tool will provide a return on investment, I will get
Yes.
it. There are tools. I actually make a list of tools that I would recommend to people, like almost like a ninja has his set of weapons. These are our weapons for our battle. and there's certain weapons I want to have. And it doesn't necessarily matter the cost, is what is it going to do for me? Because time is our biggest factor when it comes
Yes.
to, is it worth it money wise? So I need the tools to tell the story. And if it's the correct tool for the job, I can properly evaluate the component's functionality in the system on the circuit it resides in. And if I can't do that, that is not the right tool for the job. It's subpar, and I need something that can do that.
Yeah. So along those same lines, do you feel like the people that are in the industry that excel, do you think that they're obsessive with the industry, with automobiles in particular?
I think it depends. I think there are some naturally talented people.
Hmm.
Some of the sharpest guys I know, I would never let talk to a customer because Lord, I
You
wouldn't
love the
hire.
customer, right? You don't want the customer to have to go through that.
That's the thing. I would, that person's mind, like, can they fix cars? Oh, yeah. But would I want them on my team? No, because I know they don't deal well with people. So to answer your question, I think there are people that are naturally talented and just like I don't even like cars, I'll be honest with you. And it's not a negative thing. It's just cars don't do anything for me. I can't it's there's no certain car I can't wait to buy. You know what I mean? To me, they're all
Right.
just cars. I like figuring out problems. I kind of wish I was a car nut. You know what I mean? I could think I could relate
No,
to
you
a lot
don't.
more of the people in our industry. Yeah, I'd be broke, huh?
It just take up more of your time and more of your money. So you wouldn't be able to be the Brandon Steckler that you are now.
I do think, to your point about being obsessed, I think it takes a certain level of conviction for learning. If you want to call that obsession, I think you could call that obsession. And I don't necessarily mean, I guess obsession could tend to sound unhealthy. You do need a certain level of conviction because no one in this industry is going to make you do anything as far as learning goes. Right. There are certain things, certain times you have a boss that says you must do this task and this task and this task,
Yes.
or you're fired. No one's going to do that when it comes to your education. As a matter of fact,
Nope.
most employers will say, well, if he doesn't go to training, that means he can stay and work and produce more money for me. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. So you have to take the reins yourself if you want to improve. And one of my best buddies, Brian Pollock. Do you know Brian?
Hmm. Yeah.
Brian says the first 40 hours you spend at work are for paying the bills. The second 40 is where you start learning. And I get his point. Do I spend 40 additional hours a week learning? Probably not. Was there times I have? Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's not average. But he's just making the point is everybody does the first 40.
Yeah.
It's the ones that are willing to go that extra mile. Even when the car's fixed, continue to look at some information to see what changed. And this is how you know what good looks like and then what bad looks like. And then you can recognize bad because it sticks out like a sore thumb when you see it.
Exactly. Yeah. You end up honing your skills and, honing the craft.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. There's times that I look back on, just like you mentioned before, like working a 9 to 10 hour day, coming home, grabbing a little bit of water to put on your face and going straight to training somewhere and sitting till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. You get the ubiquitous pizza, the nondescript sauce that's on it. You don't really know what you're eating. And you sit through a training course just to better yourself. And like you mentioned earlier, it's kind of sad that places haven't really grasped onto and said, hey, training comes first. We need very highly trained, certified technicians to be working on this stuff. Because I mean, one of my former guests mentioned, like, hey, these things are rocket ships now. Like it's not like a car used to be. Like there's a lot of systems on board.
Yeah, it's almost it also drives, but
Yeah.
it's more like a computer.
Yeah.
You know,
It's almost like a phone. Like, they were designed to actually talk on, but most of the time we don't talk on them any longer. Like now the
yeah,
car has all these features, but like we drive it, the other stuff's kind of ancillary.
yep, that's no kidding. And to your point, I to speak to that point you made about many shop owners do not see the value in training. I'm seeing a huge shift, a huge paradigm shift in that. As a matter of fact, that's what
Good.
my business is all about. The people that call me are only the ones that want to see their techs grow because that's my whole business model is
Yeah.
about helping people.
Well, I think that's interesting the way that you've had it set up too, because your business model doesn't set up as I'm here for just Brandon Steckler. Your business model is I will come and help you as much as possible, but I'm also going to help train the people that are there that already do not know how to do this job. And that's it's almost counterproductive in a sense if you think about it in the regular capitalistic way. But I think it actually does nothing but make you a better at what you do, better at how you're able to help people, and make them better also. Like it's like a rising tide, lifts all ships type of a business model.
That's exactly my position on it. That's why I do what I do. And you're right, from the outside looking in, one would say, this is a pretty foolish business model. There's so much time involved. But I charge accordingly. But the thing is, it's the value. It becomes a no-brainer. I guarantee the diagnosis, or I give them all their money back. But the thing is, they walk away with not only a fixed car, but with the education, and the confidence. That's the big key word there, the confidence to do it themselves next time. And that's what I strive for.
So one of the big things that's out there right now, speaking to that, is right to repair. So I'm not sure that I've seen anywhere that you've spoken about that particular subject, but I have my own hot takes on that. But I'd like to ask you a little bit about where do you see it going in the fight to be able to have your aftermarket shop, your mom and pop, people that, just want to be able to fix their own vehicle. Where do you see that fight going? And is there any horizon that's coming to us?
If I could first give you my opinion, as a technician, nobody wants to pay more money, right? I bought the
Right.
scan tool. I should be able to do the job of that scan tool. I shouldn't have to pay somebody else to use my own scan tool. I get it. Believe me, I get it. But the thing is, we've got to protect people's vehicles, their information. We have to be somehow vetted, and these things cost money. I know the opinion. Some people think it's a scam, it's a ripoff, it's a this or that. I don't believe it's a ripoff. I don't believe it's a scam. I just believe something has to happen. We need access to the information. Somebody has to govern this information and our ability to access it. And these things cost money. I think it's headed in the direction that there's almost nothing we won't be able to get. We might have to
Hmm.
pay for it, but we should have access to it. That's the direction. That's what's supposed to be happening. I hope it
Yeah.
continues. It's so much better than it was years ago. So
Yes.
much better than it was. Do we have everything fixed? No, we don't. And and if you don't complain about it, you don't formally complain about it, and take the correct channels to do that, it's never going to get fixed. So yeah,
Yeah.
you've
It's a
got to
hundred
put in the
percent.
time and make that report, file it appropriately, and this is how things happen. And if not, call in and state you've gone down the right channel and things are still
Exactly.
not happening. And then somebody else will step in. But I've got dear friends that serve on that board, on that panel, if you will, and they're out to do the right thing. It might not be perceived that way, but that's my take on it.
Yeah. So I had brought this up in the past. Like it's this information thing was a long time ago. Like this was all litigated. There was laws that were passed. Like they were not allowed to not allow you at least the access to the information. Because that was the big fight a long time ago. Was if I take my vehicle outside the dealer and I have an oil change done to it and it's documented, they were trying to make it where it wasn't under warranty anymore. And everyone made a big fight over it and was like, "Hey, that's crazy. Like, why is that a thing?" And now we've moved fast forward, 50 some years, look, 40 some years ago is when that went down. Now it's like John Deere comes along and says, "Well, no, if you're buying this, leasing it, doesn't matter which, like, we're the people that's going to fix it." And I personally have huge issue with that because when does it actually become yours? Like I've mentioned in the past, there has to be some private property rights that are at least observed when it comes to that type of stuff. Now, I agree with you. Not everybody is going to be, we'll say, certified to repair things because that's just not going to happen. We have that kind of already. Without all the technicians that are across the nation, I think I've seen less than 0.5% of the population is ASE mastered at this point in time, and a very small amount, if you ask me, don't really have ASEs. And that was kind of the governing body forever. Of like, do you at least can you go and take a test by a third party person that says that you're able to do these things? But a long time ago, we fixed that other part of it, and now they come down and say well, we're wanting to make it where the dealer is the only place that can fix it. And to me, it looks like a market share clawback is what it looks like to me, because their dealerships they're getting beat up. People don't realize how bad they're being beat up, but they're getting hit pretty hard because it's a 30% to 70% market share differential on that.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's a lot of information to try to soak up, isn't it? I know. But that's the thing too. It's like you watch it and it's almost like they try to make these things so convoluted and so much information that you can't really parse through all of it in, the requisite time that it would take to really become an expert on it. And they're kind of pushing it to that direction. Uh, like NAS, was it NASTF? Like being able to do locks and whatnot. I mean, if you go and take some training, and some states it's 2 years under the tutelage of a locksmith, and in some places you go take a course, but then it's like they make you turn over all kinds of documentation, all everything, like social security number, like it's like they treat you like a criminal up front before there's ever been a crime.
Right. Guilty before proven innocent, right?
100% Salem witch trials all over again. It's like that's what was going on then. So it's kind of weird and wild to watch how this stuff is kind of going. But I agree there has to be something that has to be done. I'm fine with that. But along the lines of like ASE, ASC's been around a long time. It was one of the first things to pop up, and I just found out recently with David Mockholtz that it was like a spin out of the NADA, and I had no idea that it was part of like NADA was like kind of behind it. But even to that point, it wasn't a government; it was a governing body. It was not the government. It's not a state, a federal, none of that stuff. So it's interesting to watch how all of it's kind of panned out so far.
And I like the aspect that the automotive industry is governing itself from that perspective. So we got to keep that in mind. Some people complain about having to take an ASE test, and it could be worse if the federal government got involved, or we had
Yeah,
to be licensed. That could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. It depends on perspective. But in my opinion, ASE certifications, at least in our country, are the only real tangible, recognizable item that the motoring public recognizes as this guy or this girl is a certified technician. Without it, we're all just mechanics. And
yeah,
you and I know, Robert, just because I can pass that test doesn't make me a good technician. But when I pull up, me as the motoring public drives up to a facility and I see that ASE insignia, certified technicians, I get a certain feeling about that. And I think it's important that we don't lose that.
yeah. I do as well. So I've had a what would you call it evolution on that? Because in the beginning it was like, oh, I don't want to have to take these. This is a long time ago. This is 30 years, but it's like I don't want to have to take these. I don't want to have to pay for them and all that kind of stuff. And luckily, where I worked, that paid for 'em. But then it was like, okay, these actually mean something because you're on the inside of that now. Like you have attained that. Now it's different to you. Now you're not an outsider looking in. Now you've went there, you've taken this test, and now you're part of that group or that fraternity, if you will. And then over time, it's like finding out that dealers, manufacturers were kind of moving away from. There were some that kind of stuck around. And then now it seems like there's a little bit of a resurgence with ASE being what most dealers are making their technicians go get.
Hmm.
So it's kind of funny to watch that evolution back and forth because when I was at Volvo was that is the training. You get mandated manufacturer training on your computer, and then you have to be ASE certified. That was it. They didn't really have like training schools that we sent them off. I was in management there. We didn't send anybody off to school. We sent them to go take their ASEs. Everything else was web based. And there's luxury brands that are, hey, if you take 4 or 5 ASEs, it gets you another level inside of that manufacturer.
Yes,
So it's definitely changed quite a bit over the years. So
it sure
it is
has.
good to see. And there has to be some segregation in those who are on the inside, those who are on the outside. Because, like you said, you have to at least have the basic knowledge and skill to be able to pass that multi choice test because it does have some fairly difficult questions on it. And a lot of people don't think that. A lot of people look at it and they're like, well, it's just a test that they go take. No, when you're inside the belly of the beast and you got to go there and sit and you're under camera and they're watching everything you do, like it's a different experience. So
For sure.
yeah,
Excuse me.
no, you're fine. So one last question:
Of course.
where do we see Brandon Steckler heading off into in the future. So now you have this particular business that you're operating. You're still doing training. You're still doing training for other locations. It looks like I think you're still with CTI, still with Wolfpack. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's what I thought. So where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself going? Off into this.
So a lot of my time is going to be directed towards this new angle of my business called
Hmm.
SWAT training and diagnostics, meaning Steckler's Worldwide Automotive Technical Training and Diagnostics. And basically a spin-off of your traditional technical support hotline, whereas I will guarantee a diagnosis, but what you're really paying for in my service is the education, and with tangible, something you can walk home with, a folder on the internet, of course, online,
Yeah,
of every web page, every wiring diagram, pictures and annotations, and a strategic battle plan to carry you through the diagnosis so we can learn from it. This business is designed to be a stepping stone to get me in front of someone who's in an acute need.
hmm,
Let's solve this problem. But what I'm really doing is I'm identifying where the lapse is and I'm addressing it with shop leadership. I'm trying to develop a game plan for that technician or that group of technicians in that shop to keep the entire team moving forward through education. I create virtual training content. I can deliver that online. I can team view remote into their computers and their scan tools and help navigate and help build these customized paid lists we've discussed earlier.
yeah,
But ultimately, I'd love to do a hands-on, what I call on-site event, and build this foundation right in front of them because that optimizes how they learn. Once
yeah,
they learn how to learn, suddenly all the learning becomes easier and self-perpetuating.
yeah, yeah. It's like Plato's cave.
Yep.
Drag them out one at a time.
Yep. So that's
Drag them out
exactly
one at a time.
what I'm going to be doing, and it's growing very very rapidly. From the day it launched several weeks ago on a Monday, I haven't had a moment's rest, and we're already talking about expansion because it's just there's only a certain few people I would entrust to this responsibility. It's not a job; it's a responsibility. Yes, any business is in business to make money. The money comes from the heart and soul we pour into our clients. We have a relationship with them and they are trusting us not only to fix the car accurately, but to learn from us. And since we have that responsibility, there's a very select few people I could ever entrust to do this on our team.
Certainly. Yeah, and I could see where this would be beneficial for someone who's just kind of watching over the process as you're remote teamed in to see kind of like some of the steps that you're taking even. Because like you said, if you see how the person's putting it together, that might be the first time that anybody at that place has seen somebody put information together that way. And I'll never forget a long time ago, John Craven, I went to a training at for Volkswagen, fast track. And he taught all kinds of amazing stuff, but that was one of the main ones was like, just look at these things first. Brainstorm. First place I'd ever heard of like, hey, write all these things down. Write down 5 things it could be before you ever grab the car and bring it inside. I'm like, never thought of it that way. Like, what could it be? Just by looking at the repair order, looking at all your recalls and your TSBs, all that kind of stuff. Do all that right up front. That way you don't have to worry about missing that step because I've been a person who's missed that step. You have probably as well. It's two or
More,
three hours. It's 2 or 3 hours of your time and it's gone. And it's like, oh, I could have just looked at this one piece of paper here and it would have told me what I could have done to this. And it ends up fixing it. So it's amazing that you're doing this. I'm glad that you're out there doing the things that you do and being able to train people. And also this new business venture to help out the industry and help them grow. So, any final words that you'd like to say?
keep pressing on, everybody. Being the best at what you do takes practice, and the ones that are perceived to be the best, just stop and ask them. They're never comfortable. It's an ongoing process, and it's easy to sit back on your haunches and just let things happen, but you will see technology catches up with you quickly and surpasses you, and it's hard to get caught back up again. It becomes overwhelming. So slow and steady wins the race. Start at the basics. Don't be in a rush. Really, really, truly spend a ton of time on the basics to the point where it's just like tying your shoes. And you will see just how rapidly things come together for you. what some people will call you an advanced technician. When you get to that point, you're going to think to yourself, well, heck, I'm not advanced. I'm not doing anything different than I was before. What makes you advanced is not your advanced techniques. It's your mastery of the basics.
Yep.
And you'll see everything else just falls
100%.
into place.
100%. One last plug for SWAT. So if you would tell everybody where they can actually find you at, what's the easiest way?
I am days away from launching my brand new website, and I'll keep
Perfect.
you updated, Robert. But for now, please simply reach out to my cell phone number, 484-824-4621, and that one's dedicated to our business. And it's as simple as that. No appointment necessary. Just call. You'll get me on the phone, and we'll take it from there.
Perfect.
Appreciate you.
Glad to
Thank you
hear it.
so much, Robert.
Absolutely.